Our main character's name is Gojo Wakana. Since childhood, he has had a passion for Hina dolls. Because his family has a long tradition of doll making, Wakana was taught how to make dolls from a very young age. Wakana's passion for dolls was so great that it cost him a friendship with a girl. But that did not make him sad. Wakana still continued to pursue his dream. And the very first thing he made as a child became a lucky charm for this young man. Every morning when he wakes up, he gazes at that face for a long time. At present, Wakana is living with his grandfather. But if people ask him what a happy family means, he does not know how to answer. Because Wakana lost his family early. So what is called happiness exists only in his grandfather and the Hina dolls. At the moment, this young man still cannot keep up with his grandfather. Because his grandfather has been in this craft for 48 years. Right now, they are having a meal together. His grandfather asks him if he has made any friends at school yet. This question may seem simple, but it is too difficult for Wakana. So the young man lies and says that he already has friends. Which makes his grandfather feel a little less worried. Because from childhood until now, he has always been attached to dolls. And he never made friends with anyone. When he goes to class, the young man always isolates himself. He is afraid of making friends with others. So since he was little, he has always avoided people. One day, a girl told him, "Because you always play with dolls, you cannot be friends with anyone." That sentence still haunts him to this day. While he was feeling miserable, suddenly, a beautiful girl appeared. Her name was Marin. She was an extremely popular person in school. Because of her beautiful appearance, she was always the center of everyone's attention. Marin warmly apologized to him, which surprised Wakana. He thought no one ever noticed him. Unexpectedly, even the school's goddess cared about him. Marin noticed something on his arm. She immediately pulled it aside to check, which frightened him, because Wakana thought he was being attacked. But when Marin realized he was fine, she cheerfully walked away. Meanwhile, the distance between them was like the love story of Romeo and Juliet. They were completely different, as if the two of them were living in two separate worlds. One person was always noticed by friends. The other only ever buried himself in making dolls. Sometimes Marin was even approached by boys. But she always rejected them, because they always called her a weeb. But that was just her own personal hobby. Marin never accepted people who forced their opinions on others. Meanwhile, those words struck deeply at Wakana's feelings. Because in his case, he had also experienced the same. So he became insecure and never dared to play with anyone. After school, this young man stayed behind to do the classroom chores in place of his classmates. By coincidence, today was also Marin's turn. She thought Wakana was being bullied. Marin assumed he only helped others because he was forced. Otherwise, he would never have done it. Indeed, this girl lived with a very bold attitude. She never hesitated to speak her mind, which made the young man admire her. That night, he continued working on his dolls, but accidentally pricked his hand. And this happened quite often. He recalled the words of that girl from before. That made Wakana even more depressed. While Wakana was feeling anxious, suddenly, the sewing machine short-circuited. His grandfather said, "It's already old. They might have to replace it with a new one." But Wakana refused, because he said buying a new one would be too expensive. The next day, he went to the handicraft club to borrow a sewing machine. By coincidence, Marin caught sight of him there, which shocked him greatly. Suddenly, he dropped his beloved doll's head onto the ground. Luckily, Wakana still managed to catch it in time. Meanwhile, that girl looked at him with eyes as if she wanted to devour him alive. He thought she would mock him, because he was a boy who played with dolls. But the truth was not like what Wakana imagined. She instead radiated surprise at his skill with the sewing machine. Marin forgot her fear. She wanted to see Wakana's treasured creation. She loved anime, but seeing these handmade items, she liked them too. She asked who made the Hina doll. Wakana said his grandfather did, because his skills were still inexperienced. Wakana only knew how to sew costumes. After hearing that, Marin felt revived, because she wanted to learn sewing. So she took off her clothes. And Marin told Wakana to look away. She immediately changed into a new outfit. And that was a cosplay costume. But her sewing skills were quite terrible. So it looked nothing like the original. At that moment, she remembered Wakana. He was someone who truly cared about the craft. Wakana noticed the differences, so he decided to help her. But in reality, he had the passion. Yet sewing for real people and sewing for dolls were different. After a while, he realized he didn't know what he was even sewing. Suddenly, he knelt down and apologized to Marin. But she did not blame him. Because indeed Wakana had made it look awful. So she walked outside. She confessed that she had a deep passion for cosplay. She begged Wakana to help her. Marin wished to fulfill her dream. So he happily agreed, even though he had never sewn clothes for a real person before. But Wakana promised he would try his best. This made Marin very happy. Because she was about to make her dream come true. They discussed the content and the character Marin wanted to cosplay. But the character she wanted to portray was a seductive girl. Wakana did not watch much anime. So he could not understand the details his friend was talking about. Truly, the young man did not understand women like us. So she said, "You just need to make the costume exactly the same." Marin handed Wakana a costume-making guidebook for anime. Because she believed in his talent. At the moment, many materials were still missing. And he needed her body measurements. By then, it was already late. And since it was Saturday, Wakana postponed it until Monday. Marin agreed. She thanked him. And Marin expressed her wish to be close friends with him. When he returned home, because the sewing machine was broken, Wakana took a break from sewing that day. His grandfather said he would fix the machine tomorrow. If not, they would have to buy another one. But in the young man's mind, Marin's image kept appearing. He wanted to use his skills to support her. The next morning, Marin came all the way to his house to meet him, making Wakana break into a cold sweat out of embarrassment. He never expected a beautiful girl to come looking for him at home. Marin said that since she could not wait until Monday, she wanted to get started right away. While Wakana's house was dedicated to making Hina dolls, even relatives had not freely gone inside. Yet Marin boldly went upstairs to see his room. Then she stepped inside. Marin did not find anything special. It matched Wakana's quiet personality. But the most striking thing was the Hina doll making tools. A girl visiting a boy's house without restraint at all made Wakana feel shy to death behind her. Marin urged him to start the work immediately. The first step would be to take her body measurements. And she had already prepared for it. At first, the young man felt shy. Because men and women should keep their distance. But Marin was not afraid of being touched. She wore a swimsuit so it would be easier for Wakana to take measurements. He completely lost his composure. To ease Wakana's nervousness, Marin even closed her eyes. Wakana tried to stay calm. But his hands still trembled. Because he was afraid of touching her body. He asked Marin, "Don't you feel embarrassed?" Marin replied that of course she did. But to portray that character, she had to act that way to be convincing. Hearing that, Wakana nodded. "Okay, then let me measure you." After understanding his friend better, he also began to take the work seriously. Taking measurements across the entire body was necessary to create a costume that would fit perfectly. Marin also asked him to measure her feet for shoes. Because wearing the old ones was very painful. She sat straight down on the cushion, which startled the young man. Because he was afraid her fragrance would linger there. But Marin showed no shyness at all. She even lay down on it playfully. Wakana had no choice but to finish the measurements. Marin, on the other hand, was delighted. She found her friend far too innocent. Wakana was completely different from other boys. Next was the bust measurement. Wakana wanted her to measure it herself. But since he had already accepted the task, he had to finish it. At that moment, his hands trembled, while sweat kept pouring down his face from the pressure. On top of that, Marin innocently asked, "Do we need to count both mushrooms too?" Which left the young man completely frozen on the spot. Moving down below eased the pressure a little. But when he touched Marin's thigh, she suddenly blushed. Even she herself did not understand why. After finishing the measurements, Marin brought 2 schoolgirl game outfits for Wakana to reference. That evening, his grandfather came home. He saw his grandson playing an adult-themed game, which made him think the boy had changed. However, he felt that at this age it was not a big deal. So he did not forbid it. But because Wakana played too much. The next morning he woke up with his pants wet. He tried to calm himself down and went to school. His mind filled with thoughts of the beautiful girl. At that time, Marin was the topic of everyone's conversation. Because she was far too outstanding. The young man planned to avoid her. But unexpectedly, Marin jumped up excitedly as if she had met her boyfriend. This shocked everyone. Normally, no one paid attention to Wakana. Yet now he was being approached by the school's beauty. Marin thanked him for what happened the other day. And then she showed off that she had just curled her hair. Marin was still hoping to receive praise from Wakana. Meanwhile, the boy didn't even dare to look her straight in the face. That made her burst into laughter. On top of that, two other friends of Marin came over to introduce themselves. They were both mischievous girls. And they were very close to Marin. One of them noticed that Wakana was feeling uncomfortable. So she told her friend not to tease him anymore. Marin, however, stayed carefree. She even touched Wakana casually, which startled him completely. It was truly embarrassing, but having someone to talk with was still fun. To others looking in, it seemed like Marin was dating Wakana, while in reality, he didn't think of himself as anything special. That kind of remark felt like salt being rubbed into his heart. When break time came, he avoided Marin, because Wakana was afraid people would spread more unnecessary rumors. The following days were the same. The boy kept avoiding her, not letting her start a conversation. This made Marin sad. She thought Wakana hated her. Luckily, that day she happened to catch sight of him just as he was about to head home. Marin invited Wakana to go shopping, because she needed a lot of things to sew her cosplay costume. Meanwhile, the others looked at them with curious eyes. So Wakana refused. Marin was very patient. She chased after him and asked for an explanation, which made Wakana angry. So he ended up telling her about the gossip people spread about him. Marin didn't care what others said. She had already considered Wakana her friend. While everyone else was spreading rumors that they were a couple, she just laughed out loud. Marin even teased him once more. After that, Marin boldly took his hand and dragged Wakana to go shopping. If they kept worrying about gossip, then when would they ever finish making the costume? And so they went to buy fabric. Wakana had already sketched out the entire character costume, which surprised Marin, because he was so professional. They bought the accessories that were available, and the most important part was still the dress and the fabric selection. If they were going to do it, they had to do it properly. So Wakana suggested choosing a cooler fabric, to make sure the cosplay wouldn't feel hot when worn. But today, he didn't bring any money. Marin had already prepared in advance, because she knew he wouldn't be able to pay. It was money she had saved up from her part-time job. She wanted to use it for personal purposes, so she could spend it freely. They went around buying all sorts of things. Then Marin even took him to a wig shop. There were all kinds of styles to choose from there. At first, Marin planned to pick a black one, but Wakana explained that the character's hair was actually purple. It only looked close to black at first glance. Marin thanked him, because if she had gone shopping alone, Marin would probably have chosen everything based only on her feelings. Meanwhile, Wakana felt useful, which made him very happy. Marin even took him to buy underwear. But the place was filled only with women, which made Wakana urge her to hurry up and buy quickly. Marin, however, wasn't in any rush. She even showed him what she picked out, saying it was a reward for him for coming along with her. On their way home, they stopped to eat and drink. The two of them talked about that adult game from the other day. And they even exchanged some rather vulgar jokes. It startled the people nearby, because they didn't expect high school students to be this bold nowadays. Wakana asked what she would do after finishing the sewing. Marin said she would participate in a cosplay event. Most importantly, she wanted to post it online to receive compliments. This was also the trend among young people. Hearing Marin praise other boys for being handsome, Wakana looked displeased. In fact, he wasn't interested at all, because he only loved Hina dolls. Hearing that, Marin understood, and she didn't discriminate against his hobby. Everyone should have their own interests. She was the same. For Marin, today was truly fun, even though she would have to work part-time regularly later to make up for the money. She had no regrets. Marin also respected Wakana a lot, because he dared to play even the adult games she gave him. Normally, others would only dare to skim through them, but Wakana actually played them, and he even discussed them. At this moment, Wakana asked about the upcoming event. Marin said there were only 2 weeks left, while they were just starting to make the outfit now. It made Wakana break out in a cold sweat. He knew he would have to work really hard to keep up. Normally, after school, Wakana had to help his grandfather make dolls. Now he had to add this task on top of that. At this rate, he he might lose sleep. On the way home, he already planned everything in his head, so that when he got home, he could start right away. That day, his grandfather saw him coming home late and asked. Wakana said he had gone shopping with a friend. Unexpectedly, the bag fell out. Inside, Marin's underwear was revealed. It shocked his grandfather greatly. As a result, his grandfather hurt his back, and he had to be hospitalized for a checkup. Miori, Wakana's cousin, also came to see how things were. Luckily, his grandfather wasn't seriously injured. He only needed a few days of rest. Marin wanted to bring him to her house to recover. Because her house was nearby, he agreed, but he told Wakana to bring his tools, so that he could still work on dolls. Wakana understood that doll making was very important to his grandfather. Even missing one day made him restless. He informed Marin of the situation. She wanted to help by cooking for Wakana to save his time. But he refused. He said he was fine. Difficulties kept piling up. Next week, the students also had exams. Wakana had to shoulder everything alone. It was truly overwhelming. The next day, during his free time, he both welcomed customers and visited his grandfather. Then he studied and continued sewing. For several nights, he couldn't sleep. Luckily, Wakana still managed to take the exam. Right after school ended, he rushed home to work immediately. This made Marin worried. Working too hard for an entire week, his body couldn't keep up day by day, which caused Wakana to fall ill. Remembering his grandfather's words, he pulled himself together. Wakana used his passion for the craft to keep going. A few more days passed. Thanks to his effort, Wakana completed the costume on time. He called Marin over. Seeing it shocked her greatly. She never expected him to finish it so quickly and beautifully. In fact, Marin originally planned not to join this event, because she knew making a costume would take a lot of time. But Wakana misunderstood. He thought she needed to participate, so he pushed himself to the limit to finish it. Hearing this, Wakana collapsed, but he wasn't angry. Marin was very touched. She never expected that she had made him suffer for so long. He apologized, saying, "If I had asked more carefully, there wouldn't have been this misunderstanding. But what had happened was already done." In the end, Wakana hoped Marin would try on his creation. Hearing that, she blushed but agreed. The two of them did makeup together. They prepared to match the character. A while later, when everything was ready, Marin also called him in to take a look. The result was no different from the original. It was even better, because Marin had a well-defined face, which made her suit the character perfectly. This achievement truly didn't disappoint anyone. Every detail was very precise. It had nothing extra and nothing missing. The costume was also quite comfortable for her to wear. Marin still couldn't believe that she had transformed into an anime character. She even wanted to take pictures. Marin insisted Wakana had to take one for her right away. Since she was excited, Marin smiled and joked a little. Meanwhile, the original character was actually very calm. So Wakana also told her to make a more serious expression. But it was precisely that expression that made Wakana's heart race. Just like that, a series of stunning photos were created. Afterward, Marin even uploaded the photos to social media. She even invited Wakana to the cosplay event the next day. Since the costume was already finished, it would be such a waste not to go. The next day, the two of them arrived at the cosplay event. Everyone had their own impressive outfits. Because this was her first debut, Marin became nervous, while Wakana felt even more uncomfortable. Because he was surrounded by girls, he felt very shy. Wakana didn't know where he should stand. Marin encouraged him. She wanted her friend to stay by her side to admire the result. The most special part was the carefully crafted melons, which made her feel completely comfortable when wearing the costume. As they continued exploring, they saw many large round characters above. While they were taking pictures, everyone quickly recognized Marin's character. Some people even asked Shinju to take photos with her. And that was exactly what Marin had hoped for when joining the event. So she nodded and agreed right away. Seeing this, Wakana also felt happy for his friend. However, some negative thoughts briefly crossed his mind. He wondered if, after this event, they would still continue being together. But Wakana still felt happy, because he had helped Marin achieve her wish. A little later, Marin ran back, and she said, "I want to take this off. It's too hot." The two of them looked for a cool resting spot. Running around in these outfits was pure torture. Wakana bought some cooling patches to cool down. He gave them to Marin so she could dry her sweat and ease the heat. Marin also asked Wakana to loosen her outfit, because her inner clothes were soaked. Wakana had no choice but to help wipe her dry. This left him extremely flustered. Meanwhile, Marin's sounds only made him even more nervous. After finishing everything, the two of them planned to go home. Staying longer might make them sick, especially since they had school the next day. Before leaving the event, Marin still insisted on taking one more photo with the cosplayer senior. Right after that, they changed clothes and returned home in joy. Wakana felt grateful, because both of them had gained a new experience. At that moment, Wakana found the event quite interesting. Marin then asked what costume they would make next. Since she still had so many things she wanted to try, that meant the two of them would continue journeying together for a long time. Knowing this, Wakana was overjoyed. He hoped he could keep accompanying Marin. The next day, after school, Marin came to Wakana's house. She wanted to clean the costume and accessories she had worn. After the previous day, Marin felt that she liked Wakana even more. At that moment, seeing Wakana's focused expression, she suddenly found him unexpectedly handsome. Wakana's grandfather also returned home. He saw his grandson bringing a girl over. It almost made his grandfather meet his ancestors. Luckily, this time they leaned against the door. Otherwise, it would have caused a huge misunderstanding. The two of them quickly explained that they were only making cosplay outfits. At first, his grandfather thought they were doing something inappropriate, but after seeing the work, he praised it and gave a few suggestions for improvement. He could clearly feel that both his grandson and he himself shared a passion for this craft. Marin also gradually realized that she had fallen for Wakana, but she didn't know whether Wakana liked her or not. While she was feeling emotional, suddenly Marin's stomach growled with hunger. Hearing that, his grandfather and Wakana invited her to stay for a meal. Wakana was quite good at cooking. Anyone who became his wife would surely live happily. Surprisingly, Marin's family background was quite similar to Wakana's in the past. Her mother had passed away due to illness, so she had lived with her father since she was little. Sometime later, her father had to work far away, so now Marin was living alone. She usually ate frozen food or fast food. Hearing this made Wakana and his grandfather feel very sorry for her. His grandfather even allowed Marin to come over and eat with them regularly, because he didn't want the girl to keep eating frozen food, as it would harm her health. A little later, Wakana walked Marin home. Marin was very happy, but this time she no longer dared to speak loudly like before. Marin appeared shy. She only softly said they would meet again tomorrow. The next day, it rained heavily. His grandfather saw a schoolgirl standing outside under the eaves to avoid the rain. He thought she was Wakana's friend, so he invited the girl into the house to wash up. When Wakana returned, he still hadn't noticed anything unusual. But when he went inside to check, he accidentally saw the body of the strange girl. This situation made both sides very embarrassed. After that, they sat down to talk. The girl introduced herself as Sajjuna. At first, Wakana thought she was a customer who came to see the Hina dolls. So he showed Sajjuna around. Sajjuna was older than Wakana, but she had a very petite figure. He was also glad to know someone who seemed to share the same interest. However, the truth was different. Sajjuna had no intention of buying dolls. She wanted to ask Wakana to sew a cosplay costume. She learned about Wakana through the photos Marin had posted online. That made her very interested. So Sajjuna secretly followed the two of them at the event. From that, Sajjuna guessed that Wakana was the one who had made Marin's cosplay costume. Since Wakana had accidentally seen her body, Sajjuna used that as an excuse to threaten him. She said that if Wakana didn't agree, she would call the police. Hearing that, Wakana had no choice but to agree to make a costume. At that very moment, Marin also came to the house. Suddenly seeing her idol was Sajjuna made her feel as if struck by lightning. Marin quickly rushed over to introduce herself. But when she found out her senior liked her cosplay photos, she became even more thrilled. Sajjuna clearly stated her request. She wanted Wakana to help make a black lily costume. Even though Sajjuna had enough money to hire skilled tailors, for some personal reasons, she wanted to ask Wakana instead. While chatting, Sajjuna even accidentally said, "Wakana and Marin are dating." Hearing that made Wakana extremely embarrassed. He quickly explained, The two of us are just friends." But when Wakana admitted that he had never dated anyone before, Marin became even more excited. After that, Marin suggested taking photos with her senior. But Sajjuna refused. Not giving up, Marin offered a solution. She would pay half of the studio rental fee if she could take photos together with Sajjuna. After thinking for a while, Sajjuna agreed. In addition, Wakana also had to go along to do makeup and provide support. These were things Sajjuna couldn't do on her own. Marin was overjoyed when the deal was made. But what about Wakana? He quickly started watching the anime of the character Black Lily. But in order to make the costume accurate in every detail, that night, Wakana discussed the matter with his grandfather. His grandfather agreed and allowed Wakana to continue. But when Wakana saw him still diligently checking the dolls, he felt that he himself was still lacking. He feared that if he didn't practice for a few days, his skills would decline. But his grandfather reassured him, "Your skills have improved. All thanks to the effort he put into making Marin's costume. And thanks to the joyful experiences with his friends." His grandfather advised, "Do what you love, and it would become precious experience." The next morning, Wakana went to Marin's apartment. He came to discuss cosplay with her. When he knocked on the door, Marin rushed out in a seductive pajama outfit. The sight left Wakana frozen for a moment. Looking in the mirror, Marin finally realized the awkward situation. If it had been before, she wouldn't have cared at all. But now, she realized she liked Wakana. That made Marin feel embarrassed again. A moment later, Marin changed into proper clothes and invited Wakana inside. She hadn't had time to put on makeup, so she panicked even more. This was the first time Wakana had ever entered a girl's home, which made the atmosphere even more tense. At first, Wakana only planned to pick up the anime disc to watch. He didn't expect Marin to pull him in to watch together. Marin even led Wakana into her own room. Inside, it was full of things related to her upcoming anime character. She also revealed her plan to cosplay a villain in black, but it was meant to match Sajjuna's Black Lily costume. After they watched the anime for a while, Marin suddenly felt as if they were on a date. The more she thought about it, the more Marin felt that Wakana looked really handsome. But while she was daydreaming, suddenly Marin's stomach growled with hunger. Since morning, she hadn't eaten anything, so Wakana suggested going out to eat. But Marin wanted to cook by herself and invite him to stay. At first, Wakana felt a bit worried. He thought that food cooked by a Shinjuku girl would surely taste delicious. But then he remembered, Marin always eats fast food, so he was about to cook instead. But Marin didn't agree. She said that since she was always taken care of by him, this time she had to cook with her own hands. So when she stepped into the kitchen, Marin suddenly realized she wasn't wearing a bra. While she was still going braless, she thought it wouldn't be noticeable. At that moment, in her mind, she imagined the scene of making a love omelet for Wakana. Then she started daydreaming again by herself. But no one knew how good Marin's cooking skills actually were. Wakana only needed to look at the way she cut onions to know it wasn't good. Meanwhile, the girl was still daydreaming. She considered herself a genius, because she believed she could cook well. In the end, Marin produced a dish, a plate of omelet rice that looked pretty bad. But when he tasted it, Wakana felt the flavor was actually quite unique, since she had added a few special ingredients. The dish unexpectedly turned out delicious. Wakana gave a bright smile. He praised that the food was wonderful. Hearing that made Marin completely love-struck. A few days later, Wakana had finished the draft design for Sajjuna's costume. He sent it to her for approval. And overall, everything seemed fine. Of course, all expenses were covered by Sajjuna. But thanks to her experience, Sajjuna could handle her own hairstyle. She also shared many useful tips. How to make the eyes look bigger, or how to adjust the face to match various expressions. Sajjuna promised to teach Wakana a few more techniques. She even invited him to her house. But when he found out, Wakana immediately told Marin. Marin insisted on going along, because she really wanted to learn more tips from her senior. The next day, the pair went to meet Sajjuna and her sister. Strangely, Sajjuna's younger sister, the younger sister actually had a bust twice as big as her older sister's. This left both of them completely shocked. However, although the younger sister was shy, she was also very charming. Marin curiously asked about her size, and she discovered that, even though the girl was only in middle school, She had developed far beyond the norm. It turned out that all of Sajjuna's hot photos were taken by her younger sister. This made Marin extremely excited. She also wanted to have beautiful photos taken like that. At first, Sajjuna didn't plan to post many photos online, but her younger sister wanted to share her sister's beautiful moments. So she secretly created an account to post them gradually. Over time, the Sajjuna sisters became an online sensation. They received a lot of praise. But even though they only did it as a hobby, they never wanted to collaborate for advertising. Later, Marin also discovered that the younger sister shared the same interests as her. Both of them were huge fans of the character that Sajjuna cosplayed. However, when asked why she didn't cosplay herself, the younger sister suddenly grew quiet, not wanting to say much. Their family actually had a father who was passionate about photography. He owned many high-end cameras and lenses, which was how the two sisters managed to create such stunning photos. After hearing that, Wakana tried to look up the prices of cameras like theirs, but he was shocked to find out they were far too expensive. Even the accessories had to be purchased separately, so they could only settle for taking photos with a phone. Before leaving, the group agreed to meet again next week at a free studio to try a photo shoot. On the scheduled day, the whole group gathered at the studio. It turned out the place was actually an abandoned hospital, and this was the first time they had ever stepped into such a place. Marin and the younger sister weren't afraid. In fact, they even went exploring everywhere. Meanwhile, Wakana went along with Sajjuna, but when he saw that the senior didn't dare to go deeper inside, he thought she was afraid of ghosts. So Sajjuna came up with another excuse. But it was clear she was anxious. The gloomy atmosphere also made her uneasy. They weren't sure whether they could capture good photos or not. At that moment, the younger sister explained, if you want to shoot against the light in a dark environment, you need to use a reflector to balance the light. That way, the photo won't turn out too dark. A little while later, it started to rain. The rain only made Sajjuna even more frightened. She still kept denying that she was scared, while in fact, they only wanted to check the location to choose nice shooting angles. We're talking. Wakana asked about Sajjuna's dream. He shared that he wanted to become a master doll maker. Meanwhile, Sajjuna honestly confessed that since childhood she had loved magical girls. She once dreamed of becoming a character like that. But as she grew older, she realized it was only a product of imagination, a dream that could never come true. By middle school, Sajjuna bought her very first cosplay costume. Even though the costume didn't fit her body well, she still thought it looked beautiful. And that was her way of making her dream come true. Wakana wondered, if this dream is so important, why did you ask me to sew the costume? Wouldn't it be easier to hire someone else? Sajjuna replied, I used to be really jealous of Marin, even though her photos were only taken with a phone. Thanks to the stunning outfit made by Wakana, Marin looked incredibly captivating. Sajjuna believed that, if Wakana were to make her costume as well, she too would have an outfit just as wonderful. Deep in her heart, Sajjuna had loved that costume for a long time. These words moved Wakana deeply. He burst into tears, because he realized Sajjuna was just like his old self. When you truly love something, you will pursue it to the very end, no matter what happens. Wakana tightly held Sajjuna's hand. He thanked his senior because she had helped him understand. Sajjuna panicked. She thought he was about to do something reckless. But just a simple handhold was enough to make her emotions explode, to the point that she fainted. The next day after school, Marin suddenly invited Wakana to the beach. When they arrived, the place was completely empty. There wasn't a single person around. Wakana thought Marin wanted to take photos. But when he looked at her innocent face, Wakana knew that wasn't the case. Marin revealed, the semester has ended. Now it's time to have fun. So I wanted to come to the beach. This unpredictable action left Wakana in complete shock. But since they were already at the beach, he also tried to keep a relaxed mood. The two of them sat watching the ocean waves. Marin wondered, waves begin with the wind. So where does the wind begin? Then she suddenly laughed. They casually joked, I wonder when we'll fall in love? Marin happily ran around, while her hair and dress fluttered in the wind, making Wakana blush at the sight. Even though he didn't quite understand what she was thinking, he still wanted to join in her joy. That made him happy, because at that moment, he had Marin by his side. A few days later, the two began working on the design for a new costume. Marin had just bought a swimsuit. She suddenly lifted her shirt to show it off, startling Wakana. Seeing her friend blush, Marin's heart also felt strangely happy. After 2 weeks, Sajjuna's costume was finally completed. She was extremely satisfied, but still wanted to double-check everything. As for Marin, there was no need to ask. Every time she had something new, she was overjoyed. Wakana even did Marin's makeup to make it more perfect. This completely surprised Sajjuna, but even though the two of them had very few tools, the result still made her look breathtakingly beautiful. Sajjuna even lent them a few more items, and taught them how to extend the eyeliner to create a cold, sharp look. After everything was finished, even Marin herself couldn't recognize her own reflection in the mirror. When they went back to the abandoned hospital to take photos, suddenly, the rain poured down again. Without enough light, they couldn't continue shooting. Then Sajjuna's younger sister appeared with a different identity, which left both girls completely shocked. It turned out that last time, the boy had mentioned that his sister also wanted to cosplay. After talking for a while, Wakana promised he would help her make it happen. Hearing that made the younger sister overjoyed. She said she wanted to transform into her favorite male character. Upon hearing this, Wakana was left speechless. This was going to be very difficult, because when he saw her oversized chest, and with not much money available, Wakana ended up having to take care of everything. Back at home, he lent his own school uniform to the younger sister so she could disguise herself as a boy. While the pants fit, the shirt didn't work at all with her large chest. Suddenly, her 2 grapefruits ended up breaking the shirt buttons. However, the two sisters did not give up. Both of them kept trying to find a solution. They tightly bound the chest to make it look balanced. Thanks to their effort, in the end, they managed to create this appearance. Marin was so happy that she cried. At first, she didn't even realize it was her junior. Sajjuna felt the same. She was delighted to see her little sister looking like this. After everything they had done, Sajjuna sincerely thanked Wakana. She herself didn't even realize that, "I've come to love cosplay during this time." He only let her take pictures. Seeing them like that, he felt a bit sorry. But then again, he just let it be. Because now, Shinju had already gained confidence in being herself. After that, everyone saved those beautiful photos together. The two sisters later edited the pictures. They thought Marin's expressions were excellent. Sajjuna even had to admit that she had loved Wakana's outfit from the very first time. However, if it wasn't that girl wearing it, things might have turned out differently. Shinju's photos were also wonderful, to the point that her older sister had to say she felt very jealous. Hearing that, the girl was overjoyed. She gained more confidence about cosplaying. She promised that when she entered high school, she would get a part-time job to earn money for this hobby. Meanwhile, Marin also called the one she loved to praise him. She said his skills were improving. Shinju had been perfectly transformed from a girl into a boy. It was truly remarkable. Marin also asked him when he came up with the idea. He said that the two of them had worked together some time ago. Hearing that, Marin grew jealous knowing Shinju had stayed in the same room with Wakana for a few days. After that, she came up with the idea of cosplaying a new character. This time, the costume was very easy to make. The important thing was that the character had slightly dark skin. To resemble that character more, Marin stayed under the sun for too long, turning her fair skin into dark skin. That really frightened her. Truly, once you have passion, nothing can stop you. Even with darker skin, she still looked very much like Shinju. After bathing, her skin became fair again, because the darker layer earlier was just makeup. A little while later, they went outside to shop. But this time, it was shopping for her boyfriend. Marin noticed that he had very few clothes, always wearing the same ones over and over. That wasn't okay at all. So she wanted to buy him a few sets of clothes as gifts. He himself didn't know what style suited him, so they had to try some flashy, colorful designs, but those weren't suitable for him. However, in Marin's eyes, they looked very cute. He wanted to take them off, so she had to choose a few simpler sets instead. In this way, they had a very fun time going out. It felt as if they were on a date. When leaving, he talked about this cosplay event. He said he wouldn't do it, which made her sad. Upon asking, she found out that the outfit was very revealing in private areas. So he didn't want to see her exposing herself like that. That statement was like an affirmation that he doesn't want her to wear revealing clothes for others to see. Marin realized that he liked her too. Both of them looked shy. In the end, they cancelled the cosplay outfit. But this time, Wakana wasn't upset. A few days later, Marin continued to take her loved one out. In the scorching heat, they entered a cafe specially for manga enthusiasts. Inside, there were all kinds of drinks. But more importantly, she was by his side. Wakana felt shy sitting close to her. Because he could see all her skin, she took out the manga with her favorite character. She said, "I also really want to cosplay that character. But I'm afraid it will be too revealing." He checked it and saw it was not as revealing as before. So Wakana told Marin to go ahead and try it. Hearing him give permission made her quite happy. Just like that, they enjoyed themselves until the afternoon before leaving. A few days later, she found a suitable place for photos at a cheap price. This young man didn't think much about it. It wasn't until they arrived that he realized it was a love hotel. Inside, there were quite a few items meant for couples in love. The good thing was that the room was spacious. And the background was nice. So they could take photos comfortably. In general, many people came here for the same purpose as them. Because the price was cheap. But now, if they checked out, they wouldn't get a refund. So they were forced to use it. Marin went into the bathroom. She found it so spacious that she invited the young man to shower with her. That made him freeze all over. A moment later, she came out wearing her new cosplay outfit. He saw that she was still beautiful as ever. She praised Wakana's skill. The outfit fit perfectly. Marin had also read an urban legend that said, "If you put 3 worms in your wallet, you will save a lot of money." She wanted to try it too. In a love hotel, of course. There were some available, so she took one and gave it to the young man to save together. After that, they moved on to the main part. They started redoing makeup and taking photos. Wakana was working so hard. He didn't mind anything. Wakana let his friend sit on him to take better photos. When they finished taking pictures, he realized the problem. He immediately told her to get off him. Marin was also startled. Accidentally, she dropped her phone onto the light switch. She was held by Wakana around the waist. But since they both had feelings for each other, she didn't say anything. Before anything could progress, the staff called to announce the time was up. She felt too embarrassed afterward. She ran off to change clothes. A few days later, it was the summer festival. Marin really wanted to go to the festival with her father. But he was busy, so the plan was cancelled. Wakana came to comfort her. He realized that part of it was because she was lazy with her homework. So her father only allowed her to go after finishing it. Currently, she was also working as a photo model. But Marin hadn't developed much yet. He noticed that the photos in the magazine were very sharp, while Marin's face still looked attractive. And the reason she was earning money was that she wanted to buy herself a camera like the 2 older sisters had. But feeling bored, she confidently invited the young man to watch a horror movie, while showing fear at the jump scare scenes. Meanwhile, the young man remained indifferent. When it came to Oni scenes, it felt like it was already a marriage proposal. He realized, "I also like watching this kind of movie." After finishing all the English homework, she realized the math homework was still left at school. So she had to go back to get it. At that moment, there was no one at school except the security guard. They went to the swimming pool at the swimming club to splash around. But Marin wasn't paying attention. And as a result, she fell into the water. She couldn't get back up. So Wakana had to jump in to save her, which made both of their clothes completely wet. She actually didn't know how to swim. But Marin really liked going to the beach and playing in the water. After that incident, they went back to do homework until the afternoon. Finally, all the homework was done. That evening, the 2 of them met at the festival. This shocked Wakana. Marin wore traditional clothes and tied her hair up, making her look very different from usual. But one thing was undeniable. He had already had his heart stolen by Marin. Inside, they enjoyed all the games. Both of them bought a lot of snacks, making Wakana feel dizzy. This small spot was said to be for the 2 of them to sit and watch the fireworks while eating. Soon after, the sky was filled with fireworks. The scene made someone like Wakana, who rarely went out, feel excited, because this was probably the most memorable year of his life, as both of them got to watch fireworks with the person they liked. He glanced to the side, and suddenly saw Marin paying close attention. But when she looked back, both of them froze for a moment. Suddenly, because her sandals were quite tight, Marin's feet hurt on the way home. The young man had no choice but to carry her back. He also promised that next year he would be more careful and wouldn't let her get hurt like this again. Hearing that, the young man felt happy too, because next year he would surely be able to accompany her again. That's it for today's video. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to support Oni-chan in the upcoming videos. Thank you for watching. Lots of love.